Hey, what is up everyone, and welcome back to another Apex Legends video. And today I wanted to break down the Season 7 tier list. Having Horizon join the group, we definitely have to reorganize where these legends are placed on the tier list. So I'm going to break through each of the legends individually and see where they kind of rank this season. Now, before we get started, I just want to make sure that everyone knows this is not going to be for a competitive gameplay list. It's more so just for casual and pub lobbies and ranked lobbies. Also, this is my opinion. So honestly, the player makes the legend. So any of these legends can actually be top tier legends as long as you know how to use them properly. So keep that in mind when you're looking through this list. These are just my personal opinions and how I feel about the legends. If you do like the video, make sure to give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I also stream on Twitch Tuesday and Thursday nights, so make sure to check me out over there as well. Now, I don't think that any of the legends are absolute dog trash, so we're going to start this off in D tier and just completely skip over the F tier. The new legend for Season 6, Rampart, I feel is held back by a slightly underwhelming skill set, and that makes her one of the lowest ranked legends on the list. Her passive is only useful for LMGs, which most players in Season 7 replace with ARs and SMGs, and her ultimate, even though it is powerful, makes her a sitting duck and takes time to set up. You can't really move it at all, and it's really limiting. Unless you have time to set up the location beforehand and prepare for the fight, she becomes redundant and easy to counter. You can just basically avoid her and you're all set. The real reason to play as Rampart is her amped cover tactical, which can be used to freely zone out an area, create cover out of nowhere, and increase the damage potential for the entire team. Becomes less useful in close quarters, but at a mid-range level, it can get very dangerous and tricky to go up against. The only issue with this is that her shields take forever to deploy and can be shot down with a single bullet before even deploying fully, so it makes her very manageable to go against. Moving on up to the C tier, we're going to start off with Octane. The trade-off of his tactical, sacrificing health for movement speed, is a unique mechanic for Apex Legend abilities. No one else can actually regen health the way he does, and it's a nice benefit to have as the player. Octane received a slight buff this season and is now able to regen health at twice the speed. It's now nicely balanced, kind of allowing you to play either with caution, only using stim before or during in the fight, or honestly you can just be reckless with it and stim every few seconds and loot up and attack enemies as you wish. If you used at the wrong moment or too frequently, Octane's diminished health will leave him vulnerable, and ultimately really not that practical during fights. So if you stim too hard, you'll have nothing to fall back on. Octane players also have a reputation of not having many brain cells, and yes, I'm sorry if you're an Octane player, but you guys honestly tend to run off to as far as you can, leaving the rest of the team out to be picked off by an enemy team and die. They also tend to start fights, run in and poke shots, and honestly dip after getting shot at, leaving their teammates behind to die as well. I do have a personal grudge just against Octane players playing in solo queues. So honestly, please don't be one of these Octanes and actually be a good teammate and stick with us, and don't run off and let us die. Moving on to Loba, I feel like she's a mid-tier legend that doesn't provide much offense or defense to the team. She has some mobility aspects to her, but even then, it's such a long animation to get through. You can't really defend yourself while doing it. Also, her ultimate is used for looting, and that's about it. She did get a slight buff this season, and you can now take as much ammo out of her ultimate without sacrificing a loot slot, which has been very limiting in the past, but it's a great feature for this season. When using Loba, you need to remember to be smart and mindful with her abilities, because they are extremely visual. Meaning you can see her ultimate and her bracelet from a mile away and know exactly where the team is. So improper use of the teleport or black market will honestly lead to a quick death if not careful. This is kind of what I see going wrong with most Loba players I encounter. They just tend to place it without caution and kind of just anywhere they want without actually strategizing where to place it. And honestly, it saves it for the moments when it truly makes a difference. By no means is she a top legend. They did decrease the amount of time it takes for the black market so you can actually loot up a lot quicker, but honestly a good Loba can turn the match with a single ability and a quick shield swap at the end of a fight. With Mirage, all his abilities revolve around using the holographic decoys to confuse and distract the enemy players. For this reason, his abilities have often been considered some of the weakest of the characters in the game, because they lack the utility and versatility, and also because as time goes on, It's easy to figure out which decoys are the decoys and which Mirage is the real guy. You can no longer rely on enemies being fooled up every time you put out a decoy, and it's become a little bit redundant as a game player. These decoys did receive a slight buff and now have 45 health each, meaning you can put a few bullets into them before they disappear. However, when you do shoot at them, they do flicker, so you can't tell which are fake, and you can actually still shoot through them and deal damage to the real Mirage. It doesn't take away how deadly he can be in the right hands. His ultimate is a fantastic panic button, and if used correctly, you can give him time to heal up and rejoin the fight that another character might not enjoy. His tactical ability is similarly potent. As a scouting tool for sniffing out enemy positions, you can throw out a decoy and trick them into poking a few shots, and then you know where the enemy team's going to be. A good trick for dealing with those Mirage decoys is listen for the footsteps, because the real Mirage, you can hear his steps, but the decoy steps are silent, so you can easily pick out which one is real. Moving into the B tier, Revenant used to be one of my favorite characters to play just because of how aggressive you can be with him. But the first thing to understand about Revenant is that you're not prepared to play aggressive, you're not going to be using him to the best of his abilities. His tactical and ultimate, as you'll see, are both time sensitive and require you to really hunt down and pressure the enemies in order to capitalize on that advantage. If he pops down a totem and throws out a silence, that's the very second you guys need to start pushing. The passive only allows you to crouch strafe at a much higher speed, while firing that any legend can hope to achieve. You can honestly start strafing while crouching, reducing your hitbox and just moving at such higher speeds than the enemy team can. And with the ability to climb higher than other legends and reach unexpected places, a good Revenant can become a very effective flanker and just sneak up on the enemy team. In recent seasons, his climbing ability has become a little less redundant, just because there's so many mobile legends to choose from that there's simply better options for mobility in the game. Revenant is usually higher on this list, however, but because Olympus is such an open map, it's harder to hide and conceal his totem. You either have to place it behind a rock that's too far away and you have to run a distance to the fight, or you end up leaving it in the open to be destroyed or taken by the enemy team, which makes Revenant a bit of a liability in some circumstances. So keep that in mind when you're playing as him, and that's kind of why he's sitting in the mid-range right now. Krypto's ability is, of course, the surveillance drone tactical, which gives him the entire team an unprecedented level of access to info on the enemy whereabouts and where to find them. The obvious drawback is that while piloting the drone, he's very vulnerable, and so already you can see that the character is a bit of a situational pick. He received a huge buff last season and is now able to access the surveillance beacons and respawn beacons remotely from his drone. This allows him to remain covered and benefit the team even more. While Krypto lacks any sort of abilities that might help during the fight, he's not entirely defenseless. His ultimate EMP can be activated from his drone, which you can charge up and unleash a powerful EMP over a large radius. You can actually do a lot of damage to the enemy teams, slow them down, and disrupt any traps. However, the fact that he's such removed from the game and from the fight, it does make him vulnerable and a liability again to have on the team. Bangalore is a solid addition to have the team. Her passive ability gives her the 30% increased mobility and makes her even harder to ping down when she's being shot at. Her tactical and ultimate abilities provide excellent crowd control and synergy with various abilities of other legends. Her only downside is basically misuse of her abilities. Her tactical should be used as frequently and aggressively as possible. You can use it as a defensive screen in order to get away and heal up, or offensively by smoking the enemy's feet, screening their vision, and then pushing for the kill right then. Her ultimate, while useful in certain situations, does have drawbacks and concerning for teammates by concussing them and also concussing yourself if done wrong. Players tend to mistake her ultimate for an offensive damage-inducing airstrike. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. The explosive time for ult, although was reduced this season, takes too long to actually deal significant damage and allows the enemy team to flee within that time. Honestly, just use it more as a crowd control barrier to stop enemies from pushing you, and you should be good with her abilities. Moving on to the two defensive characters, we got Caustic and Wattson. Caustic's one of the most dangerous players in the game. The clear downsides to him is that he has a very large hitbox and that his skill set's not very diverse. He has no mobility, and it can be tough to master his gas if you haven't used him before. On the flip side, he is a tanky legend with the ability to make any confined location his living hell. For enemies to try to push through, you can really hold a defensive position and really dominate as Caustic. His gas has never been more powerful, and the threat vision he gains during his gas ensures that he has the upper hand in most situations. With changes made to him in Season 7, his gas now deals more damage, and they eliminated the blur effect, which makes the gas more dangerous to fight in. The best way to play as him is either lock down a room or line up a hallway or laneway with your canisters and just use that as a position to slow down and deal that subtle damage to the enemy teams. Wattson's kind of similar to Caustic. She definitely is a strong defensive character. Her passive gives you the ability to charge your ultimate entirely with a single accelerant, and you're also able to stack 2 accelerants on top of each other in your inventory. Her perimeter security fences received a damage buff as well this season from 10 to 15 damage per interaction, and is extremely flexible as a deterrent, while her pylon acts as is possibly the hardest ability-to-ability counter that we've seen in Apex, allowing her to completely nullify Gibby and Bangalore's ultimates, as well as any grenades and Caustic gas grenades. However, her drawbacks is that her abilities also require a lot of time to set up, which can leave her very vulnerable. Also, her ultimate nullifies your own teammates' projectiles as well, and yes, that does include Gibby and Bangalore ults as well as Caustic grenades as well. So keep that in mind when you're setting up your team comp, that having those kinds of legends together might end up not working for you guys. Moving up to the top tier legends, we're in tier A now. Lifeline's abilities all center around her healing and equipment, and all of them can be used to benefit not only your teammates but yourself as well. Her passive may be the strongest aspect of her entire skill set, allowing her to drone to revive fallen enemies, leaving her free to continue fighting and looting. It's also insane that as soon as one revive is complete, you can pop one off again and again and again. Combine this with her tactical ability, which provides her further healing for the squad, and you can quickly become to realize why Lifeline is such a valuable piece to your team. Her ultimate is one of the most useful in the game as well, providing excellent loot for your team at various moments, but it's a double-edged sword. So this season saw a change in the supply drops that now indicates what kind it is. Game drops are now red beamed and Lifeline drops are now blue. It now tells everyone where you are and basically a huge beacon for enemy teams. Bloodhound has one of the most powerful skill sets in the game. Eye of Allfather gives you the fight-altering information on enemy whereabouts and tactics, and is well worth the sacrifice for your own teammates' stealth and positioning. The same is true of the passive, Tracker, which can also give vital clues on enemy positioning that can often leave you crucial seconds or two before the fight to engage. The real drawback to Bloodhound's skill set is that there's an awful lot riding on their ultimate. It's a great initiation tool, but it's also Bloodhound's only possible escape, and the only thing who can directly affect the gunplay, as the movement speed increases allow you to strafe and shoot at the same time, higher than most other legends. Kind of similar to Revenant, where you can have that increased movement speed and strafe at the same time. Keep in mind that Bloodhound's scans are extremely visual, and open counters allow the enemy to see what direction the scan is coming from. His ultimate is also extremely loud and can also give away your position moments before the fight. To finish off the A tier, we have the newest legend, Horizon. Going into the season, many had the notion she was going to be overpowered beast with her black hole ultimate. Surprisingly, after playing with her a few times, she's not overly powerful and she isn't game changing, but a lot of it comes down to whether you use her abilities correctly. Thanks to Horizon's Spacewalk passive ability, she's immune to the stun effect of falling great distances. Instead of landing hard, her boots will give her a soft puff energy to cushion her fall, unlike Octane. Alongside this, she can move slightly more freely in the air than other legends, which works well with her gravity lift ability. Her tactical adds yet another repositioning tool to the Apex Legends roster, but the gravity lift can also be used to disrupt enemy movements, much like the Wraith portal and Octane launchpad in a doorway. The same is true for her ultimate, however it's not as strong as once believed. With a relatively weak pull, you can easily counter her ultimate by shooting the center of it and destroying its core. But where Horizon ultimately shines is her gravity lift and movement speed. It just gives the immense freedom of movement while learning how to use it properly. And finally, we're going to move into the S tier. These are your top legends for this season. Almost every team has at least one of the three of these characters in it, so keep that in mind when you're picking your loadout. First up, we have Gibby, Gibraltar. Gibby remains one of the strongest legends in this season without having many changes made to him. With recent seasons, Gibby's powerful has just increased to help balance his drawback. Although giving him such a huge hitbox, his passive abilities help him manage bullet damage. While taking 15% less damage, Gibby also has an arm shield that absorbs damage as well before taking the damage on himself. Gibby's focus is ultimately in the protection and defense of the team, though he can also initiate and push with a great deal of success. Use his dome shield to pop accelerated revives and shields, or use it on attack and trap your enemies, stopping all incoming bullets with your dome shield. With such an open map with Olympus, his ultimate is also crucial for controlling those open spaces and dealing a lot of damage in an open area. Gibby is pretty much set to be the strongest legend in the season, so he's definitely a must-go-to guy to have on your team. Moving on to everyone's favorite robot, Pathfinder is all about mobility. Key to his success and popularity is his grappling hook, which gives you a unique and versatile form of mobility and travel. There's a great deal to learn, in particular about using his grapple correctly, so make sure you try that out in the firing range beforehand. Once you've mastered it, there are a few options better, both for escaping and initiating fights. The grapple was recently reworked, and now the cooldown is dependent on how far you can grapple. The max cooldown of 35 seconds, shorter grapples now have shorter cooldowns. Pathfinder is also one of the few characters who can access survey beacons, and by doing this, you can access the survey beacon and ultimately reduce your cooldown for your grapple. And to wrap up the entire list, probably your most OG character in the game, everything about Wraith is designed to make her difficult to pin down and kill. While big beefy tanks like Gibraltar look to absorb and negate damage, Wraith seeks to avoid it altogether with her passive forewarning of incoming threats, and her tactical and ultimate allowing her and her teammates to reposition in short order. You can also use her to get out of a jail free card with her phase, or use her to attack by setting up her portal near a Revenant totem. Wraith is extremely versatile in the ways you can use her and is one of the toughest legends to beat. Wraith has been nerfed more times than can count just because of her popularity and win rates. Unfortunately, her Naruto run was removed last season in order to increase her hitbox, but that hasn't stopped her from being the most popular legend in the game and a game-defining legend. Wraith's only real weakness is that the low profile perk means she takes more damage when she's hit, but thanks to her small hitbox and shrunken posture, hitting her is easier said than done and is definitely one of the strongest legends in the game. Now again, I just want to reiterate that this is based on my opinion and nothing here is actually factual. I played a lot with all the legends and it's kind of just where I see them sitting in this new season and how successful they're going to be. If you saw that your legend was lower than you hoped, make sure to leave a comment down below and tell me where you think they should be placed. I'm always open to suggestions, and again, it's just kind of placing them to where I think they should be. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like down below and consider subscribing. Again, I stream on Twitch Tuesday and Thursday nights, so check me out over there. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. I'll be making more content like this in the future, and I'll see you guys on the next one.